In most cases, you're going to be working with the standard master file editors. And we'll go into the company master today, and we'll look at that in real detail. On our first session, we talked about the browse. If nobody has any questions that they've thought about in the last day or two about the browses, we'll just go directly into the detail panel. Our detail panel has our toolbar, has our record detail, which shows us what the current file field is, and it's off somewhere on another one of my panels. There it is. Shows us entered on, rev date, who, and time. And then going through this panel in detail. For every customer, you have an account number, you have an alternate account number. The alternate account number is not used by the system. It's just used as the ability to look up stuff with a different account number. You have a company name. One of the idiosyncrasies of Stream is that the company name is the primary key for a company. That's how invoices, orders, and other things are linked to a company. They're linked by the company name. They're not linked by the account number. Then you have type. This is a GenCode table like we talked about a couple of days ago that are site specific. You have a subtype, again, a GenCode table that you can set up. 2 phone numbers, a fax number, and then if you are running a compatible phone system or video system, you can directly make phone calls by clicking on the icons here, send SMS messages, or video conference. A customer has a status. There are 4 statuses that are supported in the system: active, inactive. On hold means any orders that come in get automatically hold, and X means out of business, they don't exist anymore. Then we have our tabs, the overview tabs, terms, which is how you do business with them. The first thing you have is a price level. The system supports up to 10 different price levels, retail and 1 through 9. Which price levels you use are maintained in a GenCode table. Additionally, the system will let you set up price lists, and you can say this customer is associated with this price list, and then the price levels become discounts off of the price list. The system has very, very extensive pricing capabilities, and that's a good hour to 2 hour discussion of all the different ways you can price stuff. Then you have the terms, what your sales terms are to the customer, net 5, net 30, prepaid. This field is grayed out from our security, so you can't get to it unless you have permission. Credit limit, same sort of thing, what the customer's credit limit is. It can be GenCode table driven if you want to only have specific credit limits and don't want to have someone set up a credit limit of $1,210. So it's either free form or controllable. Then you have a flag called check limit. And the check limit basically determines whether or not the system checks the credit limit when you're auditing. Why have a check limit? Just the way accountants like to work. For example, OFM has a customer, Amazon. The accountants set up an arbitrary credit limit for Amazon, but then they say, well, don't stop taking orders if we hit that credit limit, because we know they're good for it. So we have the check credit limit box in order to say, well, this customer has a credit limit, but we're not going to stop shipping to them when they hit it. It allows you to then produce a daily report who's over their credit limit on who you need to look at. Then the next field down is the risk level. The risk level is used in order to do adjustments to the credit limit. For example, if you have a lot of customers set at a credit limit of $10,000, and you're getting to the end of the month, and you've got some customers that orders are going on hold for because they're at their credit limit, and management says, well, we need to increase sales this month, so we're going to allow people to go over their credit limit. So you can, in the system, in the policy, say, allow customers with a specific credit limit risk level to go a certain percentage over their credit limit. So for example, you could say allow all customers that are risk level 1 to go 20% over their credit limit. And then this way you don't have to go through and change all the credit limits for the last couple of days of the end of the month and then go change them all back. You can just change it as a policy. Does that make sense to everybody? Have I explained it clearly? Okay. Moving on, we have reps. You have a sales rep, you have an outside rep, an EDI rep, territory, inside rep, and buyer. These are really completely free form. The sales rep is associated with the sales order when it's entered. The other reps are just used for reporting purposes. The one that is not on there is the O rep or operator rep, and that rep is set in the sales order to whoever entered the order. Then moving on, we have the company name and address. Up here, we have the basic company name, which is normally 50 characters. But in some of our overseas clients, especially in England, you will have really long company names. For example, Joseph Smith and Brothers Locomotive Engineers and Steam Fitters is actually a real company name that one of our customers has in England. So you have an additional 2 company name fields that you can fill out, and these are then used when invoices or other documents are printed. We have 2 address fields, a city field, which is required, a state or province field, zip code, country. You have options to map it. If you click on map it, it goes to Google and brings the browser up with a map. If you validate it, it goes to the US postal system to validate the address. I'm not sure if I have it. Okay, here I've got it hooked up. So if you click validate, it goes out and does this. It says this is the address that we've entered. This is what the postal system would like it to look at. The postal system prefers all uppercase, but they don't require it. It then also tells you if it's a residential address and that the address got validated. If it fails validation, you can click here and show the validation details. And this is actually what you got back from the post office. Now, in this case, it just comes back and says, this is what you sent, and this is what you got back. If it doesn't like the address, it will give you all of the information about that address it can. For example, if you use an address that's in a strip mall or in a building that has suites, and you only give it the street address, it will come back and say, this building has 10 suites in it. Here are the different suite numbers. Which one are you actually talking about? So it's fairly useful. Now, on the other hand, it will come back and tell you that it's an invalid address, which is why we have a button on there for you to use Google Maps to find it. And if you have a new development or a new address, the Postal Service will sometimes not be able to validate it, in which case you have an override button that you can click if you're allowed to, which will override the address validation and say, okay, accept this address even though the Postal Service doesn't say it's legit. An example of that would be a Northern Canada address that is serviced by FedEx using small aircraft. You might have an address, Kawangchuk Village, second house past the restaurant. And the FedEx delivery guy can actually deliver to that, while the post office won't accept that as a valid address. Same thing with international addresses. Depending upon what services you have with Cove, the default is US and Canada address validation. You can also license international address validation, and that gets really complex, and some of these addresses are really difficult to parse. While we're talking about override, we have the override button. Let's digress a little into security. You can set up, if you have rights, security on any button or any field in the system, so you can disable people from overriding addresses. Again, that's a complex or advanced security feature that'll be covered in a different training session.